Every time I lost a chess game, I thought my opponent was just smarter than me. Eventually, I realized they were just using the same patterns over and over. Understanding these patterns, better known as tactics, are what helped me break past my slump and eventually become better than 99% of chess players. This isn't just an influencer sell a course type of video though. All the information I'm going to share today is coming straight from two-time US chess champion Patrick Wolf and his book, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Chess. Even I, as an early advanced player, was able to gain something from this book, so make sure you stick around and pay attention because you might also get something from this. Before we get started, let me define what a chess tactic is. A tactic, in its simplest definition, is a sequence of moves that brings an advantage to a player. Learning tactics not only allows you to utilize them yourself, but spot them for your opponent and prevent them. Alright, so I realized in post-production that I actually didn't include this part, but everything in this video is going to be coming straight from the book. All the examples, just everything coming straight from the book. Even some of the terminology, so it's legit. All I gotta say. Peace. Right here we have a pawn fork. Pawns are usually the greatest attackers in all of chess. This is because their value is so low. No matter what they take, they're always going to be winning material. So in this situation right here, you can see that this knight and this bishop are on two forkable squares. They're forkable because the pawn moves in this pattern whenever it wants to take. So something that you may be thinking of if you don't understand pawn forks is to maybe take this piece right here. While this is a move, it's probably not the best move. This is because you have the opportunity for this fork. You simply push this piece forward. Now the opponent has to make a decision. Which piece are they going to lose? No matter what they do, even if they defend this piece again, after you take, you're simply just up material now. Here we have another forking situation, but this one's not as obvious. Let's say white plays this move, f4, and our opponent carelessly takes this pawn, thinking, I'm gonna open up the center. Once again, these two pieces are on forkable squares. Instead of trying to recapture this pawn and have material balance, you can go for an advantage, press this forward, and now you're forking both the knight and the bishop. Worth 3 points, worth 3 points, while the pawn's only worth 1 point. And at maximum face value, you're just gonna be doing much better. So pawn forks, always look for them. These are the most powerful attack. Up next, we have forks with the knight. Knights are another very powerful piece, but this is because they move in such tricky ways. In this situation right here, the knight has a square right here where it can attack both the queen and the rook. So if you were to play this move right here, the queen would have to move to a new square and you would end up winning material. Now a knight for a rook simply because of this fork. The most likely piece you're ever going to pick up forks with will be your knight, so make sure you're always looking out for these, both for you and your opponent though. Up next, we have our ideal situation where you're able to fork both a king and a queen. With this move right here, the queen can't even take the piece that it's being forked by because queens don't move in L shapes. The king is forced to move, and now you're going to be able to pick up a queen. Always look out for knight forks. Here we're in a really unique situation where even though black is down material, they're still in an instance where a knight fork can happen and they can possibly win the game from this. Because it's black's move, they have the ability to promote, and instead of automatically promoting to a queen, which most people would naturally do, promoting to a knight not only puts the king in check, it also attacks the queen. So now after a king move, they're now able to pick up this queen for free, and now with their pawn advantage, they're going to be able to pick up the game. If you look at the eval bar right now, it actually says minus 3.4, despite the fact that they were just up a queen in the previous move. Make sure to always look for forks with the knight. Moving on to the bishops now. While these may not be as dangerous as pawns and knights because of the way they're moved, they still can pack some venom. In this situation right here, you obviously see this free knight, but you also see the fork on the rook and the king. After you take this piece right here, a simple move like this, moving out of the way, actually leads to another fork. So not only are you winning another free piece through the rook, you're going to be forking both this rook and this knight. Because bishops have this long diagonal, always make sure to check the diagonals and to see what's on them. After a simple move like moving, here, to move to a safe square that's not in the path of both this rook and the bishop and this pawn, you can go here, pick up another free piece, and you're chilling. Now we're going to move on to a piece that's a little bit more powerful, the rook. Rooks, as you know, control open files and ranks, and these can be really powerful because they cover a lot of real estate on the board. in this game between two grandmasters, the opponent went here, blundering a fork. If you look between all the files and ranks, you can see that the king and the knight are on the same file. Let me draw this arrow properly. Boom, boom, boom. I think that's file. Yeah, we're gonna say it's file. So, what does the grandmaster find? This check right here, both attacking here and here. They're forced to move out the way, and the grandmaster was able to pick up this free rook. Always check for these forks. Here we have another situation where a rook fork can be very powerful. In this situation right here, we both see that the knight and the bishop are undefended and on the same file or rank. I still haven't figured that out. Sorry. So I'm gonna move my rook all the way up here, putting my rook on a 7th rank. There we go, rank. 7th rank, which is always a good thing. That will be discussed in a later video. And yeah, so it's attacking both these pieces. My opponent now would have to choose which piece they want to save. Let's say they go here. I'm going to take this free knight, and now I'm probably going to gobble up on all these pawns, and I'm going to win with this material advantage. Up next, we have the mother of all pieces, the queen. Queens are one of the most powerful pieces on the board already as is, and they can become even more deadly with forks because they cover so much range. For instance, if the opponent were to carelessly play this move, trying to set something up along this area of the board, they have just now run into a fork. Basically because of this square right here. The queen can move all the way across the board to this piece, or to this square, to give a check, attacking both the king, and now they're also attacking this undefended knight, picking it up on the next move. Here we have another situation where being careless with your pieces can fall victim to a queen fork. If the opponent were to play a careless move like bishop b7, while seemingly being innocent, this actually loses the game due to this move right here, queen to b3, which both attacks the queen and the bishop, both along this long diagonal and long straight. So make sure you always look out for where the queen can move. Last but certainly not least, we have the king. Yes, kings can fork too. So in this situation right here, if the king were to be checked by this rook right here, this is now a perfect opportunity for a fork. It's important to note that usually king forks happen in the endgame. So right here, the king has an opportunity to move out the way. Few options are to go here or to here. If the king were to go to here, now he's both attacking this rook and this knight, and there's no way you can protect both. So after a move like this, let's say, the opponent will pick up this piece right here, and now you're home chilling. Now that you understand the forks a little bit better, let's move on to pins. A pin is a tactic you can use to restrict one or more of your opponent's pieces. You can do it by attacking your opponent's piece in a way that allows you to explore a much greater vulnerability if the attacked piece moves. Let me show you here. Right now, we have a perfect example of a bishop being a great pinning piece. Right now, the pin is happening against this rook against the opponent's king. This is called an absolute pin because this rook cannot move no matter what. Can't put your king in check. So if we were to be live playing right now, I would be able to take this knight or take this rook and just be up in exchange. But let's change up the board just a tad bit. If we were to add this knight right here and move this pawn forward and make it, let's say, black's move, and we'll load this up. So right now, a move that could be thought of being played is playing right here to rotate backwards and to try, apply a little bit more pressure. I could play a move like this, applying pressure to the pinned piece. Let's say we go here, ignore the fact that I could take this. Not part of this right now, but right now we have pressure against this pinned piece. I could take with this piece right here, forcing this to happen, and now we have another pin going on. We didn't end up losing this bishop. Now we just gained a whole rook for only a pawn, and we're still going to win material here by eventually rotating around this way, and now we're just going to be up material. So not only can pins be used to win material, they can be used to immobilize pieces and eventually win even more material. It's important to recognize that not all pins are the same though. In this instance right here, there is a pin available, but it's not actually a good one. For instance, if you were to move here thinking this is a pin, the eval bar would plummet. Because yes, this is a pin, but this is called a relative pin. A relative pin is a pin that can be moved. May not always be good, may be bad, may be good, you never know. In this case, it is very bad. And this is because that the pin piece can move out of the way with tempo. This is putting a check on the king, which is going to force the king to not only move, but it's now going to reveal an attack on this bishop, and you're going to lose material. So always make sure that whenever you're pinning a piece, It's not relative, and if it is relative, make sure that something is protected or the opponent can't move that piece with tempo. Up next, we have the rook and its pinning mechanisms. So if black were to make a very careless move like this would instantly become a win for white because the rook can now see that both the bishop and the rook are in the same line. King, my bad, y'all. In the same line. And now this rook can't move anywhere because this is an absolute pin, and the king is too far away to actually come to its rescue. So after, moving out the way right here, boom, you're picking up a piece, and now it's just going to be clean conversion from here. Make sure you don't hang, your rook, and you should be able to win this game pretty easily. Here's another situation where a rook pin could happen. If, let's say, black were to play this move right here, just putting a simple attack on this knight, and the knight were to carelessly move out the way to, let's say, this square, this would fall trapped to another pin. Black can move their rook all the way down to the second rank. I think we figured this out earlier. Yeah, second rank. And boom, pinned. Once again, the king is too far away. This is an absolute pin. Boom, you're picking up a piece, and now you're probably going to pick up the game as well. Last but certainly not least, we have the queen. Queens are another piece that can pin, but always be careful with this because usually the queen, being the highest rated piece, sometimes a pin cannot be useful if you're pinning, let's say, a bishop or, something that can be on the same scope or something that can see it. But in this situation right here, it's all good. In this instance, we're pinning the knight to the rook, as you can see on this long diagonal. And not only this knight cannot be protected by any pieces, and the knight cannot move to a place where it can also protect this rook. So white is now going to be forced to make a decision. Black is now forced to make a decision. In this case, it's white's move, so they decided to leave their knight to die. So after a move like this, you're just simply winning material. Make sure to always look out for these pins because they're everywhere in the game. Up next, we have skewers. Skewers are kind of like the cousin of the pin, where they're pretty similar, but they're not exactly the same. Skewers are a variation of the pin that forces the attacked piece to move, in which you win the piece behind it. Usually you force the more valuable piece up front to move. So in this instance right here, if the queen were to give a careless check by giving this check right here, this would actually put this piece in a very vulnerable position because you could skewer the pieces right here. After this move right here, the queen is now forced to go backwards to defend both the rook and, get out of the way of this bishop. But now you can take boom, boom, and now you're just in an equal position when you are otherwise in a losing situation. Right here, we have a much more deadly version of the skewer though. Right now, we can see that both the king and the queen are on the same line, and something bad's about to happen now. If it's white's move, they can move their rook right here, giving this check. And even though, king can't even go defend this. So now the king is forced to move out of the way, and boom, you're picking up a free queen. So make sure to always watch out for skewers. Moving on to the next part of the chapter, we have two attacks at once. This is very similar to forks, except for the fact that this attack is now being created by two separate pieces. This can be seen through discovered checks, discovered attacks, and double checks. Here, we're going to first take a look at the discovered attack. In this situation right here, we can see that both the bishop and the queen are in alignment right now. With this in mind, how can we move this knight to a place where we're going to inflict the most damage? With the first thought that should come to your mind, at least, is to move the knight here, both attacking this rook right here and this queen. So after I move like this, your opponent's first instinct might be to go protect this rook, but they have to remember that both now this piece has moved and now these pieces see each other. This is where chess kind of gets really complicated though. So now, after a very simple move, like let's say moving up here, how are you going to protect this rook? You can't, you lost it. Boom, goes the dynamite. Here we have another example of a great discover attack waiting to happen. Now you should always try to win the most material possible whenever you're doing a discovered attack. So what would the first move that might come to my mind? First move would be to take this pawn right here. It's a free pawn because I'm both attacking this queen, and now this queen has no way to both, take this piece and move to safety. However, this would be wrong. So let me drop one more gem for you. If you see a good move, always look for a better one. If we rewind it just a little bit, we can now see that this rook is also in alignment with this bishop if we were to move it here to this square. So instead of taking 1 point of material, I'm going to go here, revealing an attack. After I move like this, I can now take this rook, and though our bishop is going to be taken, we're going to be up 2 points of material instead of just 1. Up next, we have the big brother of the discovered attack, which is a discovered check. Now, this is one of the most powerful tactics you can ever use, so make sure you lock in on this and add it to your bag. So right now, we see that the rook and the king are in alignment. Right now, it is black's move, so anywhere that this bishop moves is going to be a check, and the opponent is going to be forced to protect this king. So one, you could move here, and that's a move. It's not a good move, but it's a move. But here, a better move, we'd be able to move right here. Now, under normal circumstances, this would be easily taken by both the queen or the rook. However, this is a check on the opponent's king, so they are forced to move out of the way, and boom, you just picked yourself up a queen. Simple as that. Here we have a pretty similar position now. The queen and the king are on the same diagonal, so there's always going to be a discovered check waiting to happen whenever you move this knight. Now, with this in mind, understand how the knight moves. You can see that it only takes one move for this knight to attack this queen. With that being said, boom, we have a discovered check on the king. And even if our opponent tries to block and, exchange queens right here, that won't work because we have this move right here. And in fact, it gets worse because after this, you have checkmate, exploding again the pin on this rook. After a move like this, boom, boom, we have checkmate, game is over. Yes, in normal circumstances, this rook could come back and block, but once again, this would now leave your king in check to this diagonal. So make sure you always look for discovered check. Last but certainly not least, we have the double check, which is the OG of them all. I'm going to show you 2 examples, and then I'm going to cut it off here because it's just so amazing. You should really see it for yourself. Go practice it. Go to chess.com, go to Lead Chess, look up double checks, and just go to work. But anyways, this situation right here, we're going to start off with sacrificing our queen. Why are we doing that? Because after a forced take right here, we have not only, a double check, which can be happen either here, which is not a good move, or here, which is a good move. You now have, one option. Okay. We have this move right here, which now gives checkmate. Boom, boom, boom. Because one, you're now protected by this rook, and now you're blocking off all these squares. Boom, boom, boom. Nothing can take it. Or you can go to, the king can go to this square right here, and you have this mate. But what's so fancy about the double check is that the king has to move every single time. There is literally nothing you can do. You can't block this check here because who's blocking this check here? You can't block this check here because who's blocking this check? Every single time there's a double check, the king has to move. Just remember that. And every time the king has to move like that, something good's probably going to happen. So always look out for it. Here we have another beautiful example of a double check leading to a smothered mate. This is actually an exercise I took from a chess.com lesson. This isn't coming from the book, but same rules still apply. So right now, queen sees this king, boom, 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 boom. So there's always gonna be a double check, especially when you have this knight, which can move to a square and double check, forcing the king to move. Boom, automatic move. Gotta move here because moving, here would have been a mate. But, worst comes to worst, we got this move right here, sacrificing a piece, seemingly, or it is sacrificed because you got, boom, smothered mate. Because of back here, we had this double check. Right here, the king gotta move somewhere. Moving to this corner, you sacrifice the queen, boom, you got smothered mate. A double check always leads to good things. Always look for checkmates. Just look for good things whenever you see that double check. Usually something good is going to come from it. Thank you for watching this all the way through. I hope you're able to gain something out of this. If you want to see the greatest chess advice I have ever received myself, make sure you click this video right up here. Other than that, hope you guys have a great day. Peace.